Hi guys, it's Daisy Dimandz. Welcome to my channel. First off, look at that. Look at it. My friend got me. It's ready. I'm so excited about the hat. It's beautiful. It's a child's hat, but you know, I have a pea head. So I think it's actually officially licensed as well. Yeah, Bio World. Yeah, look at that. Anyway, you clicked on this video because you are expecting a Fnaf Tales from the Pizzaplex story. The story today is Help Wanted from the second lot in the Mega Pizzaplex books. So far the stories have been a bit mid, but this one, I loved it. I had like nothing bad to say about it at all. I really enjoyed it. Set the scene. A man called Steve is cleaning the men's toilet. He compared to cleaning the men's toilets to cleaning a monkey house at the zoo. At the gas station. So he worked at a gas station mopping toilets and sorting stuff out. He's applied for any positions at tech companies that will have him and tries to get, you know, a job. But they always go to kids with Ivy League degrees. And Steve has graduated from a local college, basically. He doesn't have the education for it, and they're taking on people who obviously have a higher education in the field. And he paid off his college tuition by working long hours at the gas station. You know, some people cannot catch a break, and I think Steve is one of those characters that just can't catch a break. He lived above a chip shop, so he always smelled of fried fish, which is gross. Could you imagine smelling of fried fish? So all his clothes and bedding smelt like fish, and sometimes stray cats followed him home because they smelt like fish. Poor Steve. So after work, he sits down in his own time to work on his project that he's been making, because obviously he wants to develop games. He is a game developer, obviously. And the project is Chip Off the Old Block. Chip. If you know, you know, like Scott's previous game making with the beaver thing, L-Chips, which was a fetch quest game featuring cartoony chipmunks, and he hoped a company would pick it up, being like he made it and hopefully a company would pick it up and buy it off him. Living the dream, you know? So he didn't have to scrub gas station toilets anymore. Which is fair enough, like, I scrub toilets and it's not fun. Steve had a girlfriend he found online called Amanda. She was a primary school teacher, but they'd only been on 2 dates due to their schedules not lining up. Obviously, Steve works a lot, and obviously working at school, busy. Steve had a boss, Gilbert Hurlbut, who told him to clean up spilt blue slushy. When a man, not like their usual customers, so he was smartly dressed, came in and pulled him out of his daydreaming and said, "Can you spare me a moment?" Steve said, "Sorry, can I help you?" And the man said, "I think perhaps you can, if you are Steve Snodgrass." What a name. Hurlbut and Snodgrass. Wow. "I am," Steve said. The smartly dressed man said, "Can I have a word with you outside?" And Steve didn't want to get in trouble with his boss, so he said, I don't think I should, you know? I'll get told off." And he said, "Well, if you step outside with me, you may find yourself working for another boss. Perhaps this will help." And he handed Steve his business card. Brock Edwards, Talent Acquisition, Fazbear Entertainment. Mr. Edwards offered Steve a job as a game developer to create 4 games for Fazbear Entertainment about all the lies and slander that had gone on. Obviously, the murders and stuff like that, which is lies and slander. Steve thought it was distasteful, which I don't blame him. Making light of, you know, a kid murderer. Go Fazbear Entertainment. No, we kill kids. As Steve knew of the controversies and the criminal allegations and spooky goings on, it didn't sit right with him. making horror games of actual murders. Mr. Edwards offered him to be taken to an undisclosed location due to not wanting any game leaks. So we'll take you, we'll go somewhere so nobody can steal the games that you're working on. And with a personal assistant to run his errands for him. So he'd be catered to, clothes washed, groceries bought, and stuff like that. As nice as that sounded, Steve didn't feel right taking this job. His relationship couldn't handle long distance, and horror games made him uncomfortable. He wanted to work on family games. He turned down Mr. Edwards' offer and went back to mopping. At home, Steve was making himself some food and getting ready for work on his game when his phone pinged. He picked it up, thinking it was Amanda, his girlfriend. No, it was his dating app. Steve. A message from Victoria. He got curious and opened the message. Looks-wise, she was everything Steve was looking for. Long wavy black hair, brown doe eyes, and sun-kissed skin. He thought, why not reply? Amanda was nice and all, but they weren't exclusive. Oh, Steve. Steve and Victoria had a back and forth. They decided to meet up sometime that weekend. At her place, in the country, for lunch. Steve goes to chat with his friend about it, Matt, and he concurs that he's doing the right thing. So his friend is like, yeah, she's fit, go for it. Like, she's banging, mate. Go on, like, go talk to her, go have this date. So Steve's on the way to Victoria's, winding down country lanes, and it leads to a little granny house, so like a little cottage area. And he knocked, and there was no answer. So he stepped inside. There was no curtains and little to no furniture. So it was basically like an empty house and bland white walls. Steve then heard a whirring mechanical sound and then a loud, high-pitched ringing, which hurt his ears and his brain. What's going on in this bizarre place? Steve said. He felt dizzy and unsteady when a soft voice said, Steve! If it was Victoria, she was just like her picture suggested. So she was not a catfish. She was beautiful, exactly what Steve wanted in a woman. And Victoria suggested that they have a picnic lunch inside. And then another high-pitched scream came from the smoke detector, but there was no smoke. So he's like hearing a ringing in his ears, like a really high pitch, and then like a really loud one. After that, Steve was full, and when he came to, he was just sat on the sofa. So he blacked out, and then he was full, sat on the sofa in a fully furnished house with pictures of Victoria. And Victoria had changed her outfit. She was wearing a beautiful green dress, and now she was wearing something different. Victoria then gave Steve a glass of water. Steve said, sorry, let's have this picnic. And Victoria says, picnic? What, like our first date? I made a note which said, illusion disc, noise, question mark. Victoria then explains he has been in a car accident. He has got brain damage and memory loss, and they were together and handed him a photo of them on their wedding day. Seems legit. When Steve got up the next morning, after finding out that he had a wife, he actually had 2 kids with him. Like, wake him up, like, daddy, daddy. There was a girl about 4 and a boy about 2. He couldn't remember having kids with Victoria, but she was downstairs flipping pancakes, and these 2 children had come to wake him up. And they were called Abigail and Avery, Victoria says. So Steve basically now has this family, and he's like, oh, I've been in a car accident, so that's why I can't remember them. And just goes along with it. And Victoria basically says to Steve, look, we're in money troubles. We're gonna lose our house. We're gonna be homeless. The kids are gonna be homeless. I'm gonna be homeless. Steve said that he'd get a better paying job. Like, he asked her, oh, do I still work at the gas station? And she said yes. And he goes, well, I'll just get a better paying job then. And a car pulls up the next day. And it was Brock Edwards, Fazbear Entertainment. Here's my card. He could remember every detail of the offer that Brock Edwards had made to him. So he came to the house, he said, do you want to accept this offer? And he could remember, Steve could remember every single detail that Brock had told him. He said he would accept because obviously his family is struggling and he wants to help out his family. And if he did it, then he could stay with his family. So he could just work from home. He thought, brilliant, I'll do that. Right. The next night, Steve hears like a mechanical bashing and crashing in the kitchen. So he comes down and his daughter, Abigail, was bumping into furniture at night with a blank expression. Steve went, oh, come on, sweetie, let's go back up to bed. Like, what are you doing, weird child? And Victoria explains to him, yeah, she sleepwalks like you sleepwalk. And she said, you passed it to the kids, like it's hereditary, this is on you, dude. And I was just like, I wrote down, gaslighting queen. Love that for Victoria. Steve kind of wigs out a bit in the house. Like, he feels very uneasy and frightened and on edge and not safe in this house whilst working on the games as well. So he has like a really uneasy feeling. He feels a bit scared. At this point, Steve thought he was going crazy, not sleeping, because he wasn't sleeping either. So he's not sleeping and he's hearing scratching coming from the walls. And one night, he was walking through the house and suddenly one of the walls popped. Thick, black, oily slime oozed out. He tried like waking up Victoria, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, there's like gook everywhere. But Victoria was unfazed, like, there's nothing there. Like, what are you on about? Are you okay? And said, you're probably just sleepwalking, you're imagining it, come back to bed. He did, but he didn't get much sleep at all. The next day, he walked down the stairs. DJ Dan, the Music Man, came on the radio. Music Man! And basically said that there's going to be a snow blizzard and that it was going to last for 5 days and nobody could leave their houses because it was going to be cold and horrible and snowing. So now Steve is trapped in the house with his family making horror games, wigging out. At this point, Steve's hearing the high-pitched ringing and it's getting worse. It's like really bad. It's like tinnitus. If you don't know what tinnitus is, it's like a high-pitched ringing in your ears that you can get. And it was like constant for him in his brain, so it was a constant noise. That's enough to pee anybody off. He was growing more paranoid in the house, like making the games. All he wanted to do was just finish the games, because when he was working on the games, he didn't hear the noise as much. When he'd done that, he could get out of the house with his family. He'd already done one, so he'd already got one completed, so that's good. After he finished it, he looked at himself in the mirror, because it was late one evening and Victoria and the kids were asleep. So he looked at himself in the mirror, and he had what looked like little shaving cuts along his forearm, and he went, that's odd. I don't shave my forearms. And then he looked down, and he had the same on his chest and his belly. But he didn't shave his chest or his belly or his forearms, so where were the little small cuts coming from? He had a shower and he went downstairs and sat on the sofa and just chilled out because he wasn't getting to sleep because he was going cuckoo bananas. And then suddenly, an alien snake-like thing burst through the living room wall and started attacking him with a long forked tongue, stabbing him, and then vomited up snakes. So he freaked out, rightly so, ran to his bedroom to wake up Victoria and be like, Victoria, there's an alien thing that's just puked up loads of snakes in the hallway. And she's like, no, there's not. And he shows her the cuts and was like, look, where are these cuts coming from then? He's just attacked me. And Victoria's like, I think you need to get some psychiatric help. Like, she thinks that he's totally tonto. We're still snowed in by this point, and it had been going on for plus 5 days. Steve still felt an overwhelming dread and fear, but continued life with his family and was now on game 3. So Steve was working pretty fast. One evening, he was getting really bored of DJ Dan, the music man. So he decided to change the radio station. And as he was flicking through, there was no other radio stations. And Victoria was like, oh yeah, you know, we're out in the country. We only really get like one station. Which I get, but like only DJ Dan, the music man. So Steve came up to bed. And as he was coming up to bed, the ceiling broke. It bowed, and in the middle, it burst and broke, and a gigantic spider dropped from the sky and then burst out loads of baby spiders that were crawling all over him. And Steve was like, get them off, get them off, get them off, get them off. And Victoria was like, what's up? What are you doing? And Steve was like, I've got loads of spiders on me. So Victoria's like, come here, let me see, come into the light and I can get them off. So she was like, Steve, there's no spiders on you. And Steve's like, oh no, she's gonna think I'm going bananas. And Victoria's like, yeah dude, you're going bananas. The ringing at this point is now unbearable in Steve's ears, so it's getting more, it's like cranking up to 11. It is super powerful. Quote, it's like a smoke alarm. Something inside him said, if you disable the smoke alarm, it will stop. He smashed it to pieces. He was whacking it, smashing it, stabbing it with a fire poker, and it stopped. It did stop. But then he heard the sound of DJ Dan, the music man, on the radio. Which is, you know, if you've got the radio on, fair enough. But also mechanical whirring-like noises, like he was in a little factory. He looked around the house and it was different. It had trapdoors where the creatures popped out. So where the things had bursted out the walls, there was trapdoors. It was, quote, like a haunted house with the lights turned on. He hid in the closet because he could hear a whirring mechanical noise coming towards him, so he thought, sod this, I'm getting in the closet. He peeked out of the closet and it was a shiny robot. But the thing about this shiny robot is that it was talking in Victoria's voice. So Steve was like looking for the kids, like, where are the kids? Oh my god, there's this robot that sounds like Victoria. They're gonna think their mum's been taken by a robot. And then he looked out again and saw his 2 children. But guess what? They weren't his 2 children. They were tiny little robot children. They're going around this house now, these 3 robots, saying, Daddy, Daddy, Steve, Steve, where are you, Steve? You know, trying to coax him out. And then after a while, they kind of stopped talking and just aggressively searched the house, picked up furniture like it was a twig. Like, these robots are not messing around. Steve could hear on the radio DJ Dan, the music man, say, stay safe, everyone. Except you, Steve. So basically, the house was making him feel uneasy for a reason. At this point, Steve was like, this is madness. I need to run and get my keys. So basically, he thought, I'll make a break for it. I'm gonna run, no matter if there's snow or not. So he tries to make a break for it. The robots chase him, they find him, and Steve just runs to the bedroom. Like, tries to lock the door, it doesn't lock. He puts a chair in the way. And like the robots are like pushing, banging, and Steve's like a little twig man. Like, he does not have the muscle to hold these robots off. And there's a radio in the bedroom suddenly, and it's DJ Dan the Music Man's voice, and he tells Steve, look, Steve, you won't be able to hold that door for long. They're gonna get in. You can live in bliss. We'll just take away the nasty, horrible things. You can live with your family. That's fine. And he's like, but it's not real. It's not real. They're not my family. And he's like, yeah, but don't you want the perfect life? What was your life like before? Your life now is much better. And obviously Steve's tired. He's paranoid. He hasn't got a lot of sleep. He's like, I love this woman, robot Victoria, and my kids. So he eventually gives in and he presses the button on the side of the radio. A really high-pitched ringing went in his ears again. And when Steve came to, he couldn't hold the door much longer. Victoria was stood there like she had been on their first date in the green dress. And Steve was like so happy. He was so elated that he got his wife back. He wrapped his arms around her and pressed his lips to hers. Bliss. That was the perfect word to what he was feeling. His bliss was so great that he barely felt the continuous stabbing in the vicinity of his heart. So basically, what had happened was DJ Dan the Music Man tricked him into making the illusion happen with the noise, and this robot Victoria was like termination mode as he hugged her and kissed her. This robot had like stabbed him in the chest. I thought it was great. 10 out of 10. I love this story. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, give me a follow, hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode, and I will see you next time, and I hope you have a good time. Bye!